Hey everybody, it's Mike Copera with podcastcondition.com with our, is this 70th or 71st episode of What You Drinking? And we are here with Dan, and Skylar's here as well, but he had to step out and grab his beer. So Dan, how you doing, man?
Oh man, I'm doing great. How are you doing, man?
Good. It sounds like we're both happy. We must have had some beers before the show. I know Skylar has. I can't wait for tonight's show, to be honest with you, because he's in a good mood. Let's just say that.
Awesome.
Yeah, he had a really amazing beer apparently. So it was. I'll let him talk about that. But so let's see. We're doing sours. We spun last week. So what did you stay to the style, or did you bring something wild card style?
No, I stayed with the style this time. It was a good week for sours. Well, last week and this week. I didn't pick up. There was like a who was it? It was New Belgium, I think, put out one of their annual limited release sours this week. That's everybody was dying for. But last week they had an Oso sour that I'd never heard of, and I picked that up, and I was reading about that on Beer Advocate, and it sounded like it was better to wait for the hops to kind of fade a little bit. So I'm sitting on that. But there's a lovely little local brewery called Off Color that makes Troublesome. And so I picked that up because that's actually one of the first beers that they made, and they made it with lactobacillus, which is almost unheard of. Usually, you're just opening up a brewery, you keep lactobacillus the hell out of your brewery because you don't want everything to become a sour. But they kind of embraced it right from the get-go. And it's a really nice sort of, it's not super sour, it's tart, but kind of a lemony flavor to it. Very easy drinking, light mouthfeel. Good stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't had that one in a long time. That was like one of their first beers. I think you're right. And yeah, it's been a while, and I forgot that was actually a sour. So that's cool.
Yeah. No, that's really a good beer.
Comes in 4-packs or 6-packs?
This one's a 6-pack. I think it's the Apex Predator that comes in a 4. That's not a sour. I forget what style that is, but yeah, I don't think they put out bombers at all. But this is just a fantastic sort of sessionable sour beer.
What's up, Skylar? Welcome back.
What's up?
He is happy.
I'm very happy. I just returned from the bar. I had more beer than expected because there were so many choices, so I had them all. Dan, I missed it. What are you drinking, brother?
I am drinking Off Color. It's a local brewery. They're Troublesome, and they're one of the few breweries that opened up out of the gate with the lactobacillus in their beers. They just decided they were going to go for it, and this was one of the first they did.
Show me that label again.
Oh, sure. It's like a little mouse. They got sort of a theme going on with critters, like mice and lions and such. So yeah, it's got the mouse in like a squirrel outfit and a what is that? It's a fermenter.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a nice beer.
Don't all the labels have like the same style? They're all black and white in that kind of cartoonish like artwork.
Yeah, so far, yeah.
So what was the beer? Talk about the beer that you were mentioning to me before we started, Skylar.
Yes. Okay, so I was expecting, I went to the bar for a special release of a new beer, which was Real Ale's 18th anniversary Gosa, and I expected to just have that and then come home, but they had so many other things I hadn't had before that I had to keep drinking, and then I found this $30 bottle of Creek, which would be totally appropriate for tonight, but in Texas you can't have bottles to go, so I drank it all there. So, yeah, this is from Santa Fe Brewing. And it's a Creek, but it's almost like an Imperial Creek because usually you'll have a lambic like this with cherries, and it's somewhere around 4 or 5%. This is 8.5.
Wow.
For a sour, it had one hell of a kick. and I was very impressed because Creek is one of my favorite sour styles, and I've had some pretty bad ones, I've had some pretty good ones, but I gotta say this may be one of my favorites so far. It was just so out there, and I think it was worth every penny. Um, Very good. But what I actually was going to have tonight is another cherry beer. This is the Prairie Cherry Funk.
Mm.
This is one I had for the first time a few days ago. It's a sour ale aged on cherries. And,
they're from St. Louis, right?
I don't know. They are from Oklahoma.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. They looked familiar, and I thought I'd seen them before.
They're in Krebs, Oklahoma. We started getting their stuff earlier last year, and I've been very, very impressed with everything they've put out. They're very unique. If you've ever had a prairie ale, there's not a lot of other beers like it. They're the only ones who can do what they do, and for that, I love them. So yeah, this one's got a really nice color to it. It's almost like an off orange red type thing. I've got so much beer spilt on my keyboard at this
I was gonna say, man. I was waiting for sparks to fly up.
Next keyboard I'm buying, it's gonna be a waterproof keyboard.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you talk with your hands a little bit more after you've had a few, huh?
Yeah. I'm quite a few under, but yeah, fantastic sour ale. If you're into like this is less tart than a lot of cherry sours would be, but you get a lot of the really good fruit in there. It's great.
I have a similar styled one. I've got a local here to Chicago, a brewery called Lake Effect Brewing Company.
Oh yeah.
And this is it's called the Brett Cerise, and it's a cherry. So it's a beer made with cherries. So I would assume based on the name that this is made with Brettanomyces, but
is that a blend?
Let's see. So yeah, this is I have never had anything else from this brewery. So let's see. It's Oregon cherries added to the Session Brett base beer, creating a secondary fermentation that results in a brilliantly ruby red and a wonderfully fragrant beer. Savor its refreshing and sparkly nature in a clear glass to maximize your drinking pleasure. So it's all right. I kind of wanted to say exactly how you described your beer. Mine does not look as good as yours. It's very flat, and it poured out this way.
Wow. Looks
That's
like rose water.
I know it's very much different than Skylar's, although it's also made with cherries. But it's kind of sour. It's not really that tart, and it's kind of what you were saying. I don't really get a lot of. There's a little bit of cherry in the smell, but
yeah, if they were using cherries purely for the second fermentation with the wild yeast on the cherries, especially if it's a blend. Let me see that label again.
I'm kind of surprised it's as flat as it is with that, because you think it would be like popping with champagne sort of.
And that's how it poured too. So.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, I always really like a beer with cherries, and it can be really hit or miss, and even in the type of cherries that are used. You said those are Oregon cherries?
That's what it says, yeah.
Now, did they say they were a sweet cherry or a tart cherry? Because they're like the like the Bing cherries that are super sweet, and then you've got like the pie cherries, and sometimes like I want to say that Strange Brewery.
Doesn't say.
Oh, okay. It's like Strange uses the tart cherries from Wisconsin in their beers, and I sort of got the cherry flavor in their beers. It's fantastic.
You give cherries to Strange, and they will just do the most beautiful thing to it.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Skylar.
I was just gonna say, the first beer I ever brewed had cherries in it, and I screwed up bad, not realizing that there is naturally occurring yeast on the skin of the cherries.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Mine went through a second fermentation. I was looking for a very light cherry wheat beer, and I ended up with a cherry sour, a Creek style beer. And yeah, I was not expecting that. It was something almost very similar to this. But
Now, had you have had a sour at that point to appreciate it, if or was it so early in your beer career before
it
sours
was
became?
very early because at that point I had just turned 21. Um, so I can't really say if I had had a sour before that, and I just knew it was terrible and just wrote it off as a failure, but I kept it around, and it wasn't until trying it months and months and months later that it actually ended up tasting really good. And so I guess the first time I gained appreciation from a sour was actually my own.
No, that's kind of funny.
That's
Now,
weird.
is that one of those beers that you, because I remember at the Lake County Beer Club, one of the guys who had been in the club for a while but hadn't shown up at a meeting in, I guess, months and months, showed up with a beer that he had made a long time ago, and it was a similar situation where he had initially thought, this is a failure, but he didn't throw it out. He's had bottles sitting around for years now, and every few months he'll pull it out, and it's just gotten better and better as time's gone by. Now, did you keep any of these for years, or were you pretty much like after after conditioned for months, did it kind of go?
Absolutely. I kept it for years just because when I was about to throw them out, it was about 5 or 6 months later because I'd forgotten about the box and had brewed so many other things since then. I was like, let's try this again just for the hell of it before I throw it out. And it was completely different, totally changed. It had mellowed out so well, and it was just so complex. I would love to have a beer like that again. I couldn't even reproduce it if I tried. And so yeah, I kind of kept it around. I think I knocked out the last bottle like a year or two after the initial batch, and it was awesome. One of these days I'll try to reattempt it, but I don't know.
That's right. How do you go backwards in brewing? How do I fuck this up?
Well, now you can do it on a much larger scale too.
Exactly, which is more dangerous. Because that can be a very expensive mistake at a large scale.
Yeah. How is that going? How's things at the brewery?
Things are good. We've got a lot of good feedback on all the stuff we're doing. We're getting kind of behind on electricity. To run a big brewery, you need three-phase power, and we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so we had to ask the electric company to install the lines that we need to run all the equipment. And it seems like they kind of take their time with that kind of thing. So where they said it was definitely going to be this month, they have now said we'll definitely get it done by next month on the 25th. So yeah, we are not in full-scale production yet like we expected to be earlier this week. But things are progressing, and this gives me more time to really dial in our recipes and make them even better. So no time is really being wasted. It's just a matter of we're not pumping out as much beer as I'd like to at the moment.
All right.
But yeah, other than that, it's going really well.
Now, are you guys technically open for business yet, or is there going to be a launch date that's coming up?
Well, open for business to us is just getting our production in, just making those 22-barrel batches. But we will eventually have a tap room and even a homebrew store for people that want to make their own beer. We don't have that in yet. We want to make sure everything's perfect before we do, but our first and foremost goal is to get production going. So that's kind of been our main goal. We'll see. Follow us, Galveston Bay Beer Company, all around Facebook, the Googles, the Twitters, and all that good stuff. And we'll see where it goes.
Nice. Well, I was at a concert last night, and we were at the Chicago Theater to see Spoon. And
Nice.
It was it was an amazing show. I've seen them probably a good four, probably 4 or 5 times now, and this was. I mean, they have such a solid amount of songs now that they could go on for a very long time. But yeah, it was a good show. But I've seen a good improvement on the beer selections at most concert venues in Chicago. For the most part, everyone understands that good beers sell now, and people, it's more mainstream than it was 10 years ago. So most places like the House of Blues, they've got a great selection there. But the Metro, the what is what's the bar on Southport and Belmont? Do you know that one, Dan?
Oh shoot, I do.
Schubas.
Schubas, yep.
I thought you were saying the actual
No,
name.
but no.
But that reminded me.
But yeah, Schubas is it.
That's awesome. Schubas has probably one of the best. If you want to go for a good small intimate show, it fits maybe. I mean I can't see them packing more than 50 or 60 people in that little theater, but it's connected to a bar. They've got taps in the very back where you can get really really good stuff, but in the way back is the main bar of the place, and that's where their main business comes from. But they're probably a concert every night. They're booked in their little theater, but their bar has an amazing list of beers there. I mean, I know I've had Bourbon County Stout there once. It's a really good place, and they've got a great sister location in Lincoln Park called the Lincoln Hall, and their speaker system there is just amazing. There's speakers on the ceiling and the walls, so the sound's just coming from all directions. It's great. But anyways, this show I was at last night, I was we're at the Chicago Theater. And Spoon was amazing, but the beer selection was just all Budweiser product. So fortunately, we were able to get a little bit of decent Goose Island beers, but for the most part, it was I had a green line. It was the best thing that they had. They had the 312 and the 312 Pale, and those just not good enough. I did see they have a new stout coming out that looked really good. I want to say it was called something like the Muddy or something, but I've been craving a good stout the last couple days, and so I grabbed a random 6-pack from Binny's on my way home today, and I think I might crack one of those before the end of tonight, because I'm gonna probably pound this thing because it's all right, and it's only 5.5%, so that's all right. I'm in the mood for a stout.
What could possibly go wrong? No, it's funny because I think that what it comes down to is type of venue. I saw Motorhead, what was it, 2 years ago at the Congress Theater.
Really?
Yeah. And
the Congress isn't even open anymore, I don't think.
No, well, it shouldn't be. I mean, that place.
No, it's the worst acoustics of any place in Chicago.
Well, I mean, and literally, yeah. I mean, it's like someone took a theater and they left up bunches of pretty bits and then turned the rest into concrete, and so that sound just bounces around like someone hollowed out the inside of your skull, which actually from Motorhead is perfect. But
if you get there with a band that can pack that place, I went there. I went there on St. Patrick's Day for a Dropkick Murphys show.
Oh, that'd be a good one to see there too, yeah.
On St. Patrick's Day, the place was so crowded that the sound didn't have anywhere to go, so it sounded really good and it was really fun. Yeah. But otherwise, that place just echoes all over. It's beautiful though, it's an amazing venue for the eyes, but it's a shithole, and I think it got run down because there were so many reasons, but the city shut them down, I think, eventually, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it could be, but my bigger point was that even there, at the time that I went, which was not that long ago, they were the best you could get was a 312, wheat ale, and that was still at the time we were seeing crap. I mean, because I literally pre-show we went to a bar on Southport. I forget which one it was. It was like Tunes or something like that. and I had a heavy-handed or a heavier-handed. And so there was plenty of really good craft beer around that you could get.
Yeah.
It's just that in the bigger venues like that, they weren't pumping it out because I don't think that they could. I don't think they were convinced that they'd get the turnaround as far as people buying units of beer one. So they just didn't bother.
But it's changing though. It's improving.
Yeah.
A lot of places, like I said, the House of Blues is got a pretty decent selection here at the one in Chicago. So, hey, what's up, Kevin?
Hey, Kevin. Uh-oh.
He's muted.
No, yeah, I just took it off
There
mute.
we go. What's up, Kevin? I haven't seen you in a while.
No, that's right. How you doing?
Good. What's going on? What you drinking over there?
Let's see what it is. I just poured it and I got it a week and a half ago. This is a Flemish sour ale. I did something that's totally out of character. I got the exact same sour beer that we had the last time we had a sour show last August or September. So it was like
Nice.
but I saw it in the store. I was looking for sours and I saw it in the store and I remembered I liked it so much that last time and I hadn't drank it in a year, so I figured it was appropriate. It's this. I'm not gonna. Let's see. Oh man.
What is it? A Belgian beer?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
Is it backwards to you?
It's Cuvée des Jacobians Rogue.
Yeah, Rouge.
Or Rouge.
This is a Flemish red. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Where'd you get that?
Just at Benny's. It was just a single bottle at Benny's. I think they had them in 4-packs too, but I got the bottle. I remembered I had it last time. I recognized it, and I remember I loved it. So let's see if it's still good.
I'm gonna have to
That's good.
look for that one now.
Mm-hmm.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how sour is it?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say it's a 7 or an 8. It's up there.
Okay.
That's the first thing that I think when I even just smell it and taste it, that's the first thing. But it's not. I've had some where I've had a few sours where I just don't like them. But this one's really sour and it's there's something in there that leaves me wanting more. It's like it's such a unique taste. It's so good.
Nice.
Is it some, or does it taste like it's coming from malt bill, or does it taste like it's the yeast, or kind of the combination of those two backing up the?
I don't know that I have the experience to tell with sours. I don't drink that much. I can count on one hand the ones that I've had. I've liked a lot of them, and one or two that I haven't. But no, I can't tell.
So I love sours. I didn't realize you didn't like them, Kevin.
Oh no, it's not that I don't like them. I've just had if you remember when we went to Milwaukee last fall, it was actually shortly after we had the first episode of Whatcha Drinking with Sours, the only other one, and we liked it so much, and I had liked also last summer I had one from why am I drawing a blank here? New Glarus. That was so good.
Oh yeah, I remember you liked them.
So I was like, oh, I love them. I'm loving these sours. And then I had the one when we were up in Milwaukee. I had the one at that German place, and I couldn't. I didn't like it.
Yeah,
so no, it wasn't that I didn't like the style.
I mean, this one is. If I had to put it on the Skylar scale, is 3. This is
really? Okay.
Yeah, it's very. It's tart. It's more tart than sour. That's any kind of description, but I mean it's very flat. This is how it pours.
Okay.
Again, not bad, but it's low enough in alcohol that I'm probably going to drink this and then have another one that I was talking about earlier. I have a bunch of stouts in the fridge that I want to have.
Oh yeah.
So cool. I'm glad. I'm gonna have to keep my eyes out for that. If you can maybe send me a picture of the name.
Yeah, I will.
That way.
I've seen it all the time. It's not rare. At least at the Benny's I shop at, the Benny's plural that I shop at.
I was at Benny's near my my new place just today, and I I was literally there for like 20 minutes, and I went up and down the same aisles probably like 4 times. They're probably thinking I'm like trying to steal from the place or something because I couldn't make a decision. And there was I texted to you guys. I counted 26 different Pipeworks beers at the same time. There wasn't even any abductions on the shelves. It was all just.
Oh really? No
Yeah,
abductions?
Not one.
Wow.
So I can't imagine how much beer they're going to put out when they have moved into this new location and they're brewing on a more larger scale. It's going to be insane. I can't wait. I hope they're going to start canning, right? Because that's going to be.
Was that right?
That's what I'm wondering, because I mean they talked a while ago about getting more sessionable beers canned and in 6-packs or 4-packs or I don't know whatever they're going to or bottled, and doing more that direction, sort of flagships and sessionable ales, but especially compared to what they put out, which I don't think they put out anything less than like 9% ABV. Bomber.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. But I wonder if that's going to spell kind of a general shift in terms of what they're trying to do marketing-wise, or I don't think it's a philosophical shift necessarily. And I don't see them like stopping the variety because that's what they are, man.
Right.
That's what they are.
No, yeah, I don't want the variety to stop. But you know what I wouldn't mind are some 6-packs, some cans. I'll be honest with you, I'm getting really tired of the bombers. The bombers used to be more special releases, that kind of stuff, where like everyone's doing bombers now, and it's more expensive. I mean, it's more money for the brewery, obviously, but it's like you're getting 2 beers out of that, and it's close to $10, and that's what you're paying for a decent 6-pack these days. So I'm always, and that was kind of where I was at when I was like going up and down the aisles at Binny's today. I was like, you know what? I don't want to pay for a 4-pack because you're missing, you're getting gypped a few ounces of beer there, paying the same price, for a 6-pack of bottles sometimes. So
you can get some. If you're worried about the price, why don't you just pick up some Keystone Light?
Oh!
Because I'm not an asshole. So, what I
just
did
try to
do,
make points.
you're right, but
is not the way to go.
But I'm just saying, everyone's just doing like Pipeworks is nothing but bombers, and that's fine. That's kind of what they started with, and it's kind of the exception. But like, I don't know. There's a lot of places that do both, and some of the ones that they put out in the bombers, they're nothing special. There's sometimes a year-round beer, but it's like it's just their chance. And some of them will, when you've got like 3 Floyds that are charging $30 for some of their bombers.
Or the brewery. I mean, the brewery, you can hardly get away from their beer without at least dropping like $19 on a beer. A bomber of beer, and that's it. I mean, it's good beer. Don't get me wrong,
but not all of it is. I mean, I've had a couple from the brewery, and they're fantastic, and some that are just But you still paid $15 for the bottle, or $20, like you said. Most of them are pretty much around that. Obviously, when you're in craft beer, you're going to be paying a little bit more, and you should be used to that. But I liked the days when the bomber was a little bit more special, and you see a little bit more with. I like cans. I think that's the best vehicle for the beer, and there's no chance of any light getting in there. So that's just my preference, and it's easy to carry around if you're on a bike ride or a hike or something like that. You just throw a couple cans in, you can crush them down, toss them out. It's not as you don't have all the clunky glass and all that shit. So
no, and the equivalent of the sort of the bomber or the 4-pack that I'm kind of tired of is what Half Acre does with the 16-ounce 4-packs, because it's just like, you guys, sure, they're not 12 ounces, but it's still not a 6-pack's worth of beer.
I know, but Daisy Cutter's just so good.
Oh, come on, man. You're just feeding the... You can't talk about this and then say, but it's just so good, I'm going to pay the money anyway.
Yeah, but if the beer's good...
Both sides of the mouth, man. Come on.
But that's my argument against what Kevin was saying. Yeah, I'm talking price, but the beer's good. Like, the beer's worth that much. that I'll pay for it. But if you've got Pipeworks are doing every style of beer that they do, and it's all bombers. I don't think all of the beers are worth the same amount of money, even though they charge the same amount. I don't know.
I actually saw something recently, like just a couple of days ago, about the breakdown on I forget what the article is, but it's a breakdown on what goes into a six-pack of beer, craft beer specifically. And I mean, what's that?
Where the profit is going, like how much of each bottle is really going to the brewery, to taxes, to state, to
to transportation, and
yeah.
I mean, it's amazing the amount of it. A lot of it is markup, yeah, and this is kind of what you're speaking to, Skylar. Yeah, taxes is a big chunk. I mean, but like just getting the beer from the brewery to the store accounts for a tremendous amount of the
insane amount.
Do you remember any of the numbers? Because I'm interested in this.
Yeah, I thought I saw that in the last few minutes here, actually, as I was.
I kind of do. I mean, okay, I remember that malt represented something like 4% or 5% of the price, and hops is like 4% or 3% of the price. So the base ingredients were nothing. Yeast was 1%. Water, I have no idea. That was probably actually more than yeast. Oh, there you go. You got it?
Yeah, let me just clicking it open here.
I'm throwing it in the chat.
I'll try.
Go for it.
Yeah, here we go.
It's definitely interesting. I will say, like, being a brewer now, much more involved in everything you're talking about. This is a very interesting subject. There's so much marketing and pricing and all that behind whether you're going to put it in a 12-ounce or 16-ounce, 22-ounce, or even a growler. It's really interesting seeing it from the brewery side and seeing it from the consumer side, because I'm one of those who I completely agree with Mike. I think that bombers should be held for more special beers, but you see more and more craft breweries who are going from nothing to exclusively 22-ounce and then eventually getting it to the 12-ounce. And that's because it's just easier and it's cheaper. As a matter of fact, something I've never seen before just happened here locally. We just had a brewery opening up. They're a local brewery called the Beer Refinery. Excellent beers. I love those guys to death. Can't wait to meet them. But they just went from only kegging to growlers. They don't sell bottles. They don't sell bombers. They went from nothing to growlers. And growlers are still fairly new to Texas. So that's an interesting little experiment. I can't wait.
What's the law in Texas on growlers?
The laws just changed. Growlers are allowed now. I think you still have to have it to where the label of the growler has to match the brewery you're getting it from.
That's such a bitch.
It's dumb. I think it's going to change very soon. But for the most part, it's just people are like you talk about growlers. People around here don't know what you mean.
That's bad.
So it's an interesting concept between your normal 6-pack, a 22, a growler, or just most of the breweries around here that are getting started, including my own. We're just kegging and getting our name out there before we even have the capability to bottle or can. And then canning is a whole nother thing, because cans used to have such a bad reputation. Even in the craft beer community, people thought cans, that's what we see with the big macro breweries, But the evolution of using canning in craft beer has the technology behind it is just through the roof. You can have a quality beer, if not a better quality beer, in a can than you can with a bottle, but there's still that misconception. There's still that thought that if it's in a can, it's a lower quality beer. So there's a lot to be said about the marketing side, the profit side, all of it. It's very experimental here at this point.
Right.
The marketing side really interests me, because there's a lot of breweries doing interesting things. There's one here in Chicago that we've talked about before, I've mentioned, is our arcade brewing here in Chicago. They've I think this is the second time they've done this. They have thrown out a contest to artists all over the place to design labels for their beers after they send a description out of the beer. Like they're doing one which is I think first of all they have a vote on Facebook to name the beer. They say this is the style that we're going to do, name it. And so they're doing like a coffee IPA, I think, and someone threw out the name and everyone voted for it after they decided what the top 4 or 5 choices were, and it's going to be like Graveyard Shift or something like that. And now they're throwing another contest out to local artists here in Chicago to design the label for the beer based on the name and the description. So it's cool. They did the same thing with their Scottish ale, which they called the what is the guy from Braveheart? William Wallace?
Oh, well, yeah, Wallace.
Wallace Wrestlefest is the name of the beer, and they have a cool label of like this big Irish guy with red flowing hair wrestling like an alligator, and
Scottish guy, right?
Yeah. What did I say?
Irish.
Oh, sorry, I meant Scottish.
Don't want to piss them off. They're going through independent.
I know. There's
coming to their door lot. They're gonna get ya.
Have they voted on that? Whether they're
tomorrow? The vote is it's going to be counted tomorrow. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. There was a great special on that, or not special, but like a portion of the show on HBO. Do you guys ever watch that show with John Oliver that used to be on the Daily Show?
Yeah.
What is it, like last week, this Sunday, or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. I don't get cable, but I watched clips of it on the internet.
It's
awesome.
It's amazing. He does such a good job of finding a really good topic in the news, and then diving so deep, like deeper than most people on any news network would ever do. So it's like you're like, holy shit, I've never heard of this, and you look into it, and it's like I can't believe this is true. But there's a lot of stuff. So they did a whole special on the split possible going on with Scotland. So it was a very funny episode.
It hits close to home with Texas being like it is. If there was any state in the Union to secede, it would be Texas. So we're all rooting for Scotland.
It's hilarious.
That is funny.
You gotta watch out with that, man, because you don't want to be known as like the French Canada of America.
Oh yeah.
That would be bad.
That's so crazy. Well, anyways, Dan, you were mentioning that you were at a beer fest last weekend, weren't you?
Yeah, it was actually a reprise of one that we went to in March. It was the Chicago Beer Festival. Oh.
Union Station, right?
Yep, it's the one.
I saw your picture of that. That was. I wondered when I saw that if it was an old picture, if you were actually there.
No, it's the same fest. They changed it up a little bit. There were some different breweries there. Like I don't think Blue Nose was there last time. They're from Justice. I'm going to consult my map because it actually has the names on it.
Really? I lived in Justice for like when I was born. That's where my parents lived when I was. I think I lived there until I was in like 2nd grade.
Are you serious?
Justice, Illinois has a brewery now, huh?
Yes, they do. Bucket List was there. You fronted them. I think. Well, actually, I know. What's that? Wait, what did you say, Kev?
No, I said that was probably all they have. I can't think of anything else there.
There is nothing in Justice.
there is no Justice.
I'm not going to do that.
What else was there? Was Transient Artisan Ales there the last time we were there?
That sounds familiar.
They might have.
They're based in Illinois, or?
Yeah. Oh wait, are they? Or they're either Illinois or like Missouri. I forget which. But it was funny because I mean, here we are fall, and you're thinking pumpkin beers, you're thinking a lot of Oktoberfest beers. There are saisons everywhere. You couldn't go to a brew, stand and not get a saison. It's like, guys, yeah. I mean, I think it was just one of those things where they're closing out the season and they've got the saison still going on. So,
Okay.
but it was kind of funny. But it was a good fest though, because as long as you knew who to avoid, which kind of sounds funny, but I'll explain that in a second. There were a lot of interesting beers to kind of figure out to familiarize yourself with. And that festival is kind of funny. It's the best and the worst of a beer festival in that it's the worst because you obviously get some distributors that are getting their product into the show, like a Founders or an Oscar Blues. No one's coming from Colorado to set up the Oscar Blues kiosk at the Chicago Beer Festival. That's all a distributor does. But at the same time, you're getting very vested interest from a lot of the local brewers in the Chicago area. So, like the brewers from Blue Nose are there. The brewers from Pig Mines are there. And I got a Pig Mine story that kind of follows up in an earlier episode.
We'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah. And they had like a Rockford brewing. So Rockford is sort of heating up as another Illinois kind of brew center in the state, which makes sense because they were the second largest city in Illinois for a long time. I think Peoria finally passed them up eventually. But you get these little breweries that are hungry, the brewery in Justice, Illinois. Who knows about them? They're definitely out there to say, hey, here you go. We've got beer. Hello, look at us. And they're worth looking at. So that's when I see sort of the best of it. I guess what really defines it in the end is the price. And it's one of the less expensive beer festivals in Chicago that you're going to go to, and it's easy to get to.
I was going to say, in the train station makes it really easy to get to.
Oh, God, yeah. So it becomes one of those festivals that if you're not checking it out, you should. It's just one of those things where be mindful where you're going to go.
What is it called again?
It's the Chicago Beer Festival. I think they have it twice a year now. It's sponsored by what's the cab concern?
Uber.
Yeah, Uber sponsors it.
That's a horrible thing for them to sponsor in the train station. That's the last place I'd need a cab.
Exactly. But they're offering $15 worth of cab ride wherever you need to go afterwards. So But
it used to be 25. Uber's dropping off.
Well, their business practices are coming into question now. So
they are at a train station, so I guess that makes sense.
But anyway, so it was a good fest. We had a lot of fun, and you can't beat a photo booth. So.
Nice. So before we get into the Pig Mines thing, because I definitely want to talk about that, we'll recap a little bit about what we discussed prior to them. But I wanted to tell you guys about a new brewery, and Kevin, you'd be a little bit interested into this a little bit more than most would. But there's a brewery that I found out has been opened by two guys that we went to high school with, and they opened a brewery in Tinley Park called 350 Brewing.
Oh yeah, we had their beers. I told you about that. We had their beers at Beer in a Glass. Where were we at? Yeah,
okay.
That one, and they were at the Naperville Festival I was at earlier this year.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I don't know if you remember the guys' names. One is Todd Randall.
Mm-hmm. I've been following them on Facebook for like a year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I just started when I saw someone else that we went to high school with, made mention of their opening, which is just recent. Their tap house, I should say, their tap room that just opened.
Mm-hmm.
So their beer selection, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Zach at Chain Reaction. There's just so many different beers. One of which is called El Scorcho, which is awesome. I was like, that's amazing. I need to try that beer. but they look like they've got some good stuff, and they just had some pictures posted on Facebook with like Justin Maynard from the Illinois Brewers Guild. So I think we'll see those guys probably in a lot of the beer festival circuit that Dan's talking about. So, what is this?
Oh, nothing. It's just that you said 350. I couldn't stop thinking about that damn Loch Ness Monster.
Oh my God,
that's so awesome. I love it.
I wonder if that had anything to do with their decision on the naming. I don't know. Maybe it's just coincidence.
That's hilarious. Actually, it has it's something to do with their address at their college dorm or something like that. That's when they got into.
They have a beer called Loch Ness Monster or something.
I'll let you know if I see that for sure, because the description of the brewery is great. I highly recommend somebody read it if you're interested in a good backstory to a brewery. These guys look like they were into like backyard wrestling and shit like that back in college, and all of this is like incorporated into the personality of the brewery. So I'm very excited to check this place out. I was out there for not so good reasons. We had a wake I had to go to, and it was like 10 minutes away, and I really wanted to go, but I just felt like I would be such an asshole if I went. But
someone died. I need beer.
So I skipped it, but I definitely I'm definitely going to go back and check them out. But so, anyways, we talked about Pig Minds probably about a month ago. They had a beer, the beer that came out. Well, I mean, we've had like a week in between the last couple episodes, so. But they had a beer called PD something. Is it I don't know, is it a pale ale? I don't even remember what style the beer was.
Drop.
But the PD stood for panty dropper.
Right. Yeah, it's a California fruit ale. It's like a California ale with blueberries.
Okay, so yeah, it was blueberries. I remember that. So they had a label that had just a pair of women's legs that were showing, and in the backdrop was like a brewery. There was tanks and all that stuff, and you really have to like pay attention to notice that there's like panties that are down a little bit down the legs. In a blog, there were people who talked about this like somehow promoting rape culture, saying that this brewery is promoting that you overdrink to the point where women will have sex and things like that, where I didn't get that at all. I think that's a creepy way to interpret the label itself is art, and the way that people portray the art is up to whatever's going on in that person's mind, and for them to depict that's kind of something that maybe they have to think about a little bit, because I didn't see that at all. I see that as kind of them saying like, I don't know. I've heard so many different expressions to say when something is like so damn good, like jaw dropping, or like I drop my panties for that, or like there's women that say they have like lady boners over something that they either really like or something that's really good. It's like a joke, and it wasn't to be taken in any way, in my opinion, to be promoting rape culture, first of all. So Dan, you were at this festival that you were just mentioning, and you actually spoke with some people that work at Pig Minds or are related to. Go ahead and talk to the story about how you had a conversation with them.
Well, I mean, the way it all kind of started is that we're walking around the floor, and I see Pig Minds right off the bat because I've enjoyed their beers. I'll be frank. I think they're a great brewery facility here in Illinois, and so I was kind of taken aback by all this, but at the same time, I kind of have seen this slant of argument before, and sensitivity is worth kind of keeping in mind. But all that said, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Pig Minds. I'm going to walk over there. I'm going to see what's going on. And almost immediately, one of the beers that I see on there is PD. It's their penny dropper.
Is it good?
You had it. I ordered it, and it's actually pretty good. I mean, it's not the most wonderful thing ever, but it's a tasty beer. And
Did it give you a lady boner?
I can't talk about that on the air, but but what I did do was that actually I saw this woman in sort of an entourage of the people at the station there at the fest. And so I started talking to her, and because it's kind of like, do you work for the brewery? And she's like, well, no, but my husband is an owner of the brewery, or a co-owner. And so I think, if I remember right, her name was Samantha. And I'm saying, look, on the show a couple of weeks ago, we had this conversation about PD. By the way, can I have a sample? She's like, sure, here you go. And so she poured some for me. And she, I said, well, how has this sort of affected you guys? And it's the best cat butt shot ever.
That is awesome. That was great.
Okay, so I'll try to wrap this up because the cats are obviously not happy. But what it came down to is that I said, I was asking her about this, and she said, well, this is kind of what's happened. First of all, it was a thing for a couple of weeks, and then it kind of disappeared. And during our entire, run of festivals and so forth since then, we've had exactly one person come up and say, is that PD? But otherwise, people haven't really been responding like this is some sort of devil brew that's unleashed, social chaos on the order of gender politics in the United States.
Has it helped sell more beer?
No, I don't think. Well, I don't think it's done that either. I mean, because they're still looking for ways to promote their beers. But she said something interesting that kind of caught me out a little off guard, and that was that, what? I think that the fuss about all this actually kind of puts the women's movement back a little bit, because it means that you can only be a woman if you act a certain way. If you're a woman who finds humor in, a joke that has something to do with based on sex, if you're a woman who's, who enjoys beer or whatever and is somehow associated with this label, somehow that's a bad thing. And how is that somehow, helping anybody? So I don't know what to make of it all, but I thought it was a very interesting conversation, and I still wish Pig Nines fell, because I think they're a good brewery, and they deserve mention, and they don't deserve to be shouted about.
Yeah, here's my thing. Go ahead, Skylar. What were you going to say?
I'm sorry. This is something we've been dealing with in the gaming community very recently. I'm not going to go very much into it because I was there very early on and had a large role to play there. But it's it's just a very vocal minority that's trying to start stuff for financial gain, and it's, can you take humor? Is it, are boundaries being pushed? Are people taking it too far? How politically correct is correct? It's not something we're really worried about in the beer industry, especially seeing how it's affecting other industries right now. It's not even something that needs discussion.
Yeah, I just think it's is it immature? Yeah, it's pretty much, if you look at most
funny.
I know, if you look at most of the names of a lot of beers, but specifically this brewery, they're very mature and it's very dick and fart jokey, but it's funny, and not a lot of breweries do it. So what the hell? Like, let them do their thing, and if you don't like that, don't buy their beer, and if you don't buy their beer, they'll go out of business and they'll be gone. But if enough people don't mind that, and if enough people find that entertaining locally, and if they put out good beers, then who the fuck cares? Like, let them be whatever they want to be, and let the people decide. But I don't think by creating some weird, gross picture of somebody because you don't feel comfortable having that sort of humor pushed in your face because the person that wrote, first of all, the blog on that website that I'm not even going to name because I don't even want to, promote them in any way, but, the guy had said he's only been into craft beer for like 4 years, so he has no idea, the evolution that it's been and what breweries have been naming their beers for years. Like we mentioned on the show when we first started talking about this, like not only did they not talk about any like larger breweries, like Peace has been around forever. Pipeworks themselves just put out a beer that had something to do with like bloody panties on their label and in the name of the beer somehow, and they didn't even mention that on the blog. Or there's like a really good beer podcast that I listen to on occasion, and I say it's really good because not because I really even like the people on the show, but because it's NPR and they get their interviews with some really good breweries, and they touch on sometimes good topics, but they were supporting this guy and totally jumping on his side, saying that this is what it was promoting and why they were putting this beer out with that name, just to kind of make it look like they were promoting getting girls drunk so you can have sex with them, and that's obviously not the case, especially when these guys have wives that are involved in the business as well. Like they're not going to support that if that's what they were doing. It's just a dick and fart joke in my opinion, and it's art. So whatever you take it, that's what it is. But you shouldn't dictate like what people should be able to do. If you're not into it, then don't buy it. But let other people enjoy it if it's good beer.
And it goes either way, whether you're male, female, whatever human being you tend to be, there's going to be jokes in beer. It's just a way to lighten the mood, because really in the end that's what beer does. It's a social drink. We can all come together and joke about each other, and we don't have to take each other as seriously as we do, day by day, because man, life can get too serious sometimes, and sometimes you just need a drink to let it all go.
Cheers to that, man. No, that's totally true. I mean, that actually kind of dovetails into the biggest part about this to me, is that sort of the politicization of all this. Bringing politics into this. Politics definitely has a place in beer, in my opinion, and it's in the legislative end. It's when you're talking about distribution. It's when you're talking about the rules that govern how you get your product out there, how it gets, what's a fair size for a brewery before it's considered a craft brew or whatever. But at the point where you begin to bring ideology into it, when you're beginning to say, well, this is my opinion about the way the world should work, and, gosh darn it, these people are bad. That's when you got to say, back the fuck up, man. Check your damn baggage, because you know what? Maybe they're being crass, maybe they're being stupid, and, maybe this isn't the beer that's being marketed to you, but that doesn't make it evil. It means that, like you were saying, Mike, it's like, it's beer, drink it, have fun with it. If you don't want to, find a beer you like. So, enough of the politics. Unless it's going to be on the good side of things. So.
Right? Just let it take care of itself. We make fun of all the macro brewers, Budweiser and all that all the time, but we're not, crowding up the stores telling people, don't buy this, don't buy this. Drink what you like. That's what it's really a part of. Just, personal choice. It's up to you.
Yeah.
What you want, what you don't want to drink, what you want to believe in, what you don't want to believe in.
Agreed. Well, when you guys were when you were just talking, Dan, about the distribution side of things, you being all right with that and all that. I haven't read this article in full because I was just kind of browsing over it, but the distributor's margin is almost up there with the retailers. It's 21%.
Oh yeah.
Of everything, so that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that. It's like because of the way that the system works, it's like they have no choice but to go through these distributors for the most part. But I mean, I'm probably gonna open up another can of worms if I open up another topic like this right at the end of the show here. We're at 9 o'clock already, but we've got what's the movie that they have on Netflix? It's not How Beer Saved the World, but it's another documentary about the Beer Wars, about the 3-tier system.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but then there's like the breweries that are able to self-distribute when they stay like the ones in the city that they're able to just kind of do it themselves. It's kind of confusing with the laws, and obviously it ranges from city to city, state to state, and all that. But it's hard to tell like what you can even do in certain states, because the fact that you have to have like the same label on a growler it's just crazy. So I mean, just imagine what the distribution laws are probably with beer when it comes to just looking at the growlers alone.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I mean by the good side of politics, is that, like, you've got in Illinois the Craft Brewers Guild, or the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild, and they're very active in going down to Springfield, Illinois, which is the capital of Illinois, and saying, you know what, these are the ways that we need the industry to be supported. Let's gather up the wagons and circle around and make sure this happens. And that addresses some of what you're talking about in terms of the good side and the bad side of distribution margins. And, like for the longest time, the Wirtz family dominated. The Wirtz family, I think, owns the Blackhawks, or they did. And they also own a lot of stuff in the Chicago area. And one of the big things that they dominated is distribution of alcohol in Chicago. That's gone away, and I think to a certain extent that's because of politics, the good side of it, which is like the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild. So that's kind of where I'm getting at, is that if you have a force for the industry going in there and saying, you know what, this is what we need in order for people to have jobs, in order for this to be something that's going to be good, not just for people's glasses, but for people's businesses. For the economic health of the state.
Yeah.
Yeah, but once you start getting out of the state, that's another thing. That is confusing as hell. Because I had, like the whole Texas thing, I had no idea about that law. How people negotiate that.
Yeah.
It's different. It all has to do with how educated voters are on what they're really voting on. And nowadays, people aren't, because it's just so confusing between state law and federal law, and no one really wants to take the time to even see what the people they're voting for, what their positions are. They just figure, I'm a Republican, I'm a vote Republican all the way, or I'm a Democrat, I'm a vote Democrat all the way. People don't take that into consideration anymore, and I think it's really a sad loss on democracy and what this country was founded on. And I mean, it's just going to take people waking up and saying this is what's good for us, rather than what's good for the people who really control what we say and do. It's all about education and knowing what you're voting for, really.
Yeah. All right, well, we're a little bit past the hour. I think we're going to tend to the wheel here. I took off, what did I have on here? I took off the malt liquor, if everyone's okay with that.
Yay! I mean, that's so sad.
Do we want to add anything? We've got quite a bit. We've got some fall stuff too. We still have sour. I can take that off or leave it on there. Russian Imperial Stout. We've got a Harvest Ale, Oktoberfest, pumpkin beers, anything local, Hefeweizen, spiced beers, Kolsch, Berliner Weiss, smoked beers, blended beers, saisons, canned, anything canned, cellared, anything from your cellar, an IPA with Cascade hops, an IPA in general, 10% or higher, anything as a collaboration beer, the wild card, or a Belgian.
I hope we get the cans. I just got my beer of the month shipment, and it was all cans this month. So
I love that month. That's a good one, because it's like a totally different packaging.
Yeah, I know.
All right, do we want to add anything, or are we good with that? Or
that's a big list.
Yeah.
If anything, we should probably take off. What's the summer beer that we have?
Berliner Weiss? That's summer beer, right?
And half of Eisen, too.
Yeah, the Hefeweizen.
We'll do a respin on those if they go, because I'm not going back.
Right.
All right, we're spinning. All right, what do we land on
Wild
here?
card.
What is the thing? Wow.
No, we just did that.
Wild card.
Do we? All right, we'll stick with that. Wild card it is.
right.
I will be in the great state of Michigan next week, so I will. I'll hopefully have some really good stuff locally to that area, and I will see you guys while I'm on vacation.
All right.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right, so bring anything you guys want, and we will see you guys next week for the wild card.
Great.
Cheers.
All right.
Thanks for joining.
Bel Air our best. Cheers.